Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Promised Neverland manga review. This one's going to be for chapter 179, which is called Compensation. So this isn't the last chapter of The Promised Neverland. There's some speculation that this may have been, but it is not. They are definitely setting up that there is still potentially a decent bit more in the story to go. I don't think this is something that's just going to get wrapped up in just a handful of chapters, so I think we've got a little bit left still. So that is quite interesting to know, because they could have definitely went for like, we're just in an epilogue, here's one final hurdle on this journey, and it still kind of is, but there's definitely more to come out here. I think there's definitely something that we don't know about in the human world just yet. But I suppose that's to get to more towards the end of the video, once we get to sort of maybe some speculation about where we're heading going forward. But yeah, the big thing here was that I think a lot of people are kind of pleased with this chapter is that they committed to there is some consequences to everything that's happened. That the promise being fulfilled hasn't been fulfilled in such a perfect way. The problem here is that, okay, one, not all of the humans ended, the cattle children ended up in the exact same place. Some of them are over here, some of them are over here, and most notably, most importantly for this chapter, Emma is on her own somewhere. And it's unclear about, you know, why this has happened or anything like that. And that seems to sort of, in a way, be like the final arc, the mission for the final arc, at least for the rest of the cattle children, is to find Emma. I suppose we have to wait and see what Emma's plot is going to be in that I doubt it's just that she's going to be like held prisoner or something like that. So she'll have her stuff to do, I suppose, on her own I suppose she will potentially find out some important information, and then the significance to everyone finding Emma will be that they'll be brought in on it. I don't really know where we're heading, though, exactly. But anyway, I think this chapter, it's best to discuss it as we go through it. So, everyone wakes up on the beach in New York, basically, and Phil wakes everyone up, and they get their first look at the human world. Big cheers, it's a big moment. They finally get to see what the human world looks like with their own eyes in person. Gilda's like, we really made it. They're like, it's huge, buildings, look, there's other people. It's so interesting to them just to see all this stuff. There are no demons here. It's great. They're all like, Emma, we did it, yeah. And then Phil's like, Emma? And he turns around, and in their group that's here, Emma isn't there with them, even though Phil was actually holding her hand when they, you know, the promise was activated. So what's going on here? And suddenly the excitement of the human world just fades away, and everyone is like, no. Did she lie to us in the last chapter? Were all of those speeches that she gave in the last chapter a lie? Has she done the sort of self-sacrifice thing that they didn't want her to do? The self-sacrifice thing that like Ray wanted to do in the first arc, that Norman basically had planned to do, and so on. Is Emma now doing that now? And that's why it hits Norman and Ray so hard here. Ray says, so there was some sort of compensation. It was a lie that there was nothing. I knew it. I knew something was off, but still, I believed her words. Those words being, because I know I can get over any worries or challenges as long as I'm with you guys. That was how she really felt. It wasn't a lie, but why? It wasn't a lie. That's why I let my guard down, thinking it would be okay. I'm such an idiot. Norman is in complete shock. You know, what am I doing? I was so careless. But why, Emma? Why? You told me not to bear everything on my own. In referring back to the scene of like Emma saying, you don't need to be a god. You don't need to do it all on your own. Yet you did it yourself. How could you disappear like this? And I like that sense of betrayal of like the whole last chapter, like most of it was really doubling, tripling down on this idea of Emma saying, I promise you guys, there is no twist to this. I am going to be with you when you go over. And the idea here is that it is, but it also isn't, as we'll get to. So Phil kind of just laments, you know, like, I was just holding her hand. You know, she was right next to me just a moment ago. How did this happen? And he screams out for Emma as the kids notice, just above them, some sort of a flying vessel come in. It's basically shaped like a right angle triangle. It just kind of zooms in overhead. It's like a stealth ship almost, the way it's shaped. And it lands it kind of hovers over the kind of ocean in front of them, and someone just walks out. This man just walks out the staircase. It actually looks quite similar in a way to the floating island from the last chapter. It wasn't a particularly thick chunk of rock, but it had a staircase that went down, and this is a pretty thin kind of plane, but he walks out of it. So I don't know if that's meant to be particularly important, or if it is just fancy technology and we don't quite get the scale from the image. But still, very, very cool entrance as they all look over at this guy, and then a few other people come out as well. He announces that, "My name is Mike Rattray, Peter's uncle and currently the head of the Rattray clan." He says, "Code solid, I already know. I am not your enemy. Our clan will no longer harm you children. We'll take you in. Climb aboard before things get complicated." So he's coming in to sort of take them away before they sort of get, I suppose, hassled by crowds coming around them asking who they are. I suppose before the media comes in and starts like quizzing them over stuff that they won't know what way to answer. They're doing their job here to sort of, protect them and just fill them in before they're suddenly like thrown into the spotlight in a way. So this is an interesting scene here because this is the, I suppose, Rattray clan on the human side of things. And I suppose it's unclear about like how much of a connection they have to the others. The fact that he mentions that he's Peter's uncle, to me, says that like this is them acknowledging that they know that the previous promise, that was the Rattray clan have to sort of watch over the cattle children in the demon world, has ended. And the reason that there's no sense of, I suppose, villainy to what's going on here is that it's a positive for the Rattray clan that they don't have that burden anymore. Like they basically sacrificed themselves for, to save themselves in a way, and stop the war and so on. And now the clan is in a way free because of what's happened, because the promise has changed. So of course they'd want to help the people that previously they were sort of they had to watch over in that specific way. But then we cut over to the news report about basically the kids all suddenly arriving. Next we are reporting on the mysterious children with numbers and markings on their necks and stomachs who have been discovered all around the world, causing ... As we cut and we see a shot of a bunch of the kids and the moms in Egypt. We see a bunch of them in, I'm guessing, is that Tokyo? I assume it's probably meant to be. I'm not exactly sure. And also Paris. So 3 key locations plus New York. They're 4 major locations, of course. But where's Emma? And they're all shocked because they're seeing this technology for the first time, because they're watching this like news report on basically like a hologram TV. It's just like projected in the air in front of them. It's really kind of high tech. And Mike Rattray says, "We're securing the other children as we find them. Don't worry." And this is where we get the sort of catch-up montage of this is what the human world is. So he says, "This is the North American branch of the Rattray clan. We were found in the former United States of America." So this is, I don't actually think we know who exactly is. Yeah, I'm guessing this is Norman narrating this. So we were found in the former United States of America, the east side of the region now called Area 01. The human world in November 2047 was different from what we had imagined, different from the world we had learned about up to 2015, from books and maps at the house. From 2020 to 2030, there were recurring instances of abnormal weather, natural disasters, epidemics, and food shortages, and a world war erupted and lasted for 10 years. With so many lives lost and the system broken, the world changed drastically. Only caring about yourself at the expense of others would no longer work. In order to survive, humanity as a whole needed to be saved. National borders were abolished. The world became one large nation. There's a quote here. "There are still many challenges, but humanity has finally started to move forward. We're in the midst of reconstruction." And so Norman finishes off and kind of informs the rest of the group. It's good news. This world isn't at war, and the environment isn't significantly polluted. Actually, with national borders abolished. There is no concept of immigrants. The situation makes it easier for us to be accepted. We're lucky. But obviously, the look on his face is that he's just lost in thought, basically, about Emma and stuff like this. And he's trying to see some sort of a positive in what's happening. They're all looking at Norman like, Norman? But Sislo speaks up and says, what? We're not lucky at all. And like, Don punches the wall. Ray isn't saying anything. Don asks, what does it mean that Emma's not here? So there was some reward. And they all note sort of like that jerk, there was some sort of a twist to all of this. One of the moms speaks up and says the Rattray clan is searching for her, but she hasn't been found in any of the other regions. Phil asked the obvious question here, did Emma die, or was she kept behind in the demon world? Nat explains here, no, if Emma made the promise exactly in those words being, I want all the children in the farms to go to the human world, that means the one can't take Emma's life or keep Emma in the demon world. So that's pretty logical, if that's what she quoted to them as being the promise. So the one can't break that promise, so he couldn't take her life, and she's not back in the demon world. So she has to be here to some degree somewhere. She's just separated from everyone else. Maybe. Gilda points out, but that's if the promise was made as she was supposed to. So Gilda sort of speculation, maybe she lied to us about what exact promise she made. And they're all like, no, she'd never do that. Yeah, she wouldn't try and take care of it by sacrificing herself. But why isn't she here? She worked the hardest. She wanted this future with her friends and family. And they're all sort of struggling to kind of figure out how this works. Like, why did she sacrifice herself? But it was true that she wanted to be there with them, and this is what she wanted more than anything else. She would always try to, be there with them. So it's not quite adding up. We get, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Emma. Me too. Nigel says, I would have given up. I'd be dead now, as you remember sort of previous incidents, of course, meeting Emma and how she changed things for them. Even if we had survived, what would we be doing now back in the demon world? Resenting the demons, killing them as we hid, living every day as if it might be our last, is what Zach says. We were only able to come this far because of Emma. And Gillian says, she was a goody two-shoes who always suggested reckless things. But because of that recklessness, we were all able to be here. And it's a nice line from Gillian, because she's often been the one to sort of maybe argue a little bit with Emma over how idealistic and kind of reckless with that idealism she is. So to see her be very kind of positive in this reflection on Emma is kind of nice to see. It's good character writing there. Oliver speaks up and says, Emma acts depending on what she wants to do, no matter how reckless and impossible it is. Is it important why she's not here? Does it matter where she is? And so these are meant to be these big questions of like, you sort of read them a few times like yourself, and you're like, is it important why she's not here? Of like, why are we speculating about the details of why she isn't here or not? And like, does it specifically matter like where she is? And they all come to the conclusion it's like, no, it doesn't. They want to see her. So the focus should be, what do we do now? She's not here. Now what do we do? We need to get her back. We need to find her. So everyone kind of reacts to this. We'll look for Emma. Norman says, if Emma was in our shoes, she wouldn't give up. She'd look for us even if she had to go to the demon world. One of the moms says, but what if she's already dead? Dawn, positive now. I'm sure she's alive. And they're all like, yeah, Emma wouldn't die so easily. After playing with real demons, it's now time for hide and seek. Bring it on. We're her family and we're going to go get her. So everyone's cheering. Phil is a little bit more hopeful. Some of the younger kids are like, stupid Emma, I'll find her and give her a big hug. We'll find her and live together as a family. Get a little flashback to a younger Emma, Norman and Ray, of course. Hold on, Emma, we're coming. We won't let you be alone. We'll find you for sure. So the characters have gone from being sort of like dejected at this idea, did Emma lie, to just, no, let's react to this and get her. They figured out that, like, okay, if the promise went as expected, she should be here somewhere, but she specifically has been singled out and left somewhere else. Let's get her back, and that's what's driving them at this point. The plot for them is to find Emma now, and that's quite interesting. But we get 2 more panels before the end of the chapter. So we see Emma on the ground in what looks like snow. She has a few scratches, kind of. It looks like they're kind of making it kind of clear that it was a little bit rougher, I suppose, on her, however she kind of ended up here. But there's kind of meant to be this sound of like someone walking through the snow, I suppose. And then we get a slightly wider shot, still showing Emma on the ground, but someone wearing a pair of boots kind of walks up. So Emma has been found by someone, but she's out in the middle of nowhere, kind of on her own, in a sort of snowy environment, is the impression I get. Now, it's hard to for sure know that, but I think that's what you're meant to take from this, of like, that's the sound effect of the boots sort of like, you know, making a noise in the snow is falling, and it's meant to be like, this helps to explain why Emma, it hasn't been like reported yet that Emma's been found, is because she's in a more like remote location, somewhere that would have such heavy snow and stuff like this, that would have maybe military people only out there, and that's how she's eventually been found. So the question here is obviously going to be, why was Emma separated from the rest? It seems like the idea that they're going for otherwise is that the one just put the groups as they were in specific locations. Like, if you were from this farm, you're in Tokyo. If you're from this farm, you're in France. Our group went to New York, but he specifically singled Emma out, despite her being right there holding Phil's hand, and put her here. That is a purposeful thing that he did. Now, I don't know if you can quite speculate as far as to be like, this is the reward that he wanted, or anything like that. My interpretation of like this is just, he granted the wish and fulfilled all terms of it. He just didn't do it with the perfect sense of like granting that promise in the way that they wanted it, of like, all the kids will be in the human world, but not all together in the exact same location. And I suppose it's just that wording of the wish, if you're not specific enough, he'll take advantage of it. His whole idea, based on the last appearance of him, seems to be he got a lot of entertainment out of the last 1,000 years, and he probably wants that to continue. So he won't take anything maliciously away from them, but he'll slightly manipulate the wording to be like, but what if I took the kind of heart and soul of that group and put her somewhere else? That would be fun to watch them try and get her back in this new world. And is that basically the plot that the one has basically set up to find some entertainment? At least that's my interpretation of kind of what's happened here. That's the way I view the one, as just being this sort of, you know, just kind of like devilish kind of prankster type character of, he was honest when he said that, like, I'm not going to take anything serious necessarily from you as a reward because of how much you've suffered, but here's something little. So I think that's the approach here. Now, the question is, like, is this literally as simple as she's in like the South Pole or something like that, and they just have to find their way to her? I think the fact that Emma has been found by someone, and they're not just showing her being found by like a soldier, is kind of significant, because why not just show that it's like a soldier or someone finding her if it's not important? Like, that's why I feel that like it's probably is significant that she's on her own, that she's potentially going to find out something important about what's happened here, and maybe it will reflect on the true state of the world in some way. Emma finds out the real truth, and maybe the rest of them have been lied to about the exact nature of how things got this way in the human world. Because I overall think, in terms of the end of the series style stuff, is that what we're going to be getting towards is the idea that we want a true balance in the overall world between demons and humans. That it's cool that the kids are now in the human world, but I think we're going to realize that maybe it's time to make an even newer promise and act for, you know, balance between both. Take down the border between both sides of the world completely, and actually now achieve a true peace between demons and humans. It seems like humans have sort of moved to figure out some of their problems. The demon world is entering a new era as well. If things aren't going perfectly separated completely on their own, maybe together again in an era of change might be the way to go. But how do you get there is probably the main question. Like, what happens from here on out? Like, are the kids just going to be allowed the freedom to just immediately go after Emma? Are they going to be supported by the Rattray clan in terms of finding her in some way? And most importantly, I suppose, is like, does this mean we are shifting focus to like Emma is now the goal, so we'll only catch up with her every so often, and Ray and Norman as the leaders of this group are going to be like the focus characters from here on out? That's probably what you want to do. Emma's been the focus for a very long time now, and it's felt like especially Ray has taken a big back seat. It'd be nice to see those two get to step into the spotlight a little bit more and only slightly touch in on what Emma's doing every so often. But it depends completely on where they're going. The other thing is that I've seen some speculation of like, wait, the way they were transported wasn't just through space, but potentially also through time. If the one can control space and time, what if Emma is in like the past or the future? They could do some pretty crazy stuff of like she figures something out, and maybe like what if she's in the middle of this war going on, and then by the time they eventually find her, they meet like a 20-30-year-old Emma, and like they're reunited with her, but she's different now. I don't know about that necessarily, but I thought it was a cool theory that I saw someone kind of put out. But it's worth thinking about, because otherwise, yeah, like just show the person that it is. But like if that does turn out to be a soldier, I thought the war is over, and it's been over for a while. Who is it? So unless they're going to reveal that it's some noted person, it's kind of hard to really speculate. But we have a chapter next week. I suppose we'll potentially get answers, if any. But I do have a feeling they're going to keep us waiting on this. So I think next chapter will probably be more sorting out the sort of details on, are they going to just be allowed to move from place to place? Of like, are they going to have access to some of the Rattray clan sort of technology and their ships to move around the world, or what? Or are they going to be more contained? They're not allowed to go and they have to like sneak their way out. And again, we're trying to get into like, is there going to be some big conspiracy revealed here? That there's a reason of like, we need to take something down in the human world? We're still waiting for the twist, I suppose, I think is probably the main thing to say. But yeah, they're my thoughts on the chapter. Definitely enjoyable, interesting, intriguing. I definitely like this dynamic that like, separating Emma from everyone, their desire to go after her, that's something good. I do like that, and it means that she can have focus on her own now, and we can also just have focus on the rest of the characters going after her. We'll see where they go with it now. But yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.